Greetings once again, gentleman Jim here, the brother from Harlem with the high school education. I left you guys last time talking about how kind of Harlem was formulated. My opinion, books I read, stories that were told to me. So, what is that saying? It's saying that I could only give you guys a perspective on what I knew, saw, and read. Now, we are now not in Harlem yet. Now I'm going to tell you how I got there. My family, we came from Corona, Queens. I was born in Jamaica, but we lived in Corona, Queens. Now this was from the age of about 3 till I was 8. But in living in Corona, Queens, that was a mixed neighborhood. It was both black and white. That's all I ever knew was black and white. There was no large number of Hispanics there. There was no great amount of this, that, and the other. It was just black and white. It was a neighborhood where there were mixed incomes. I mean, we had people that were anything from doctors to just regular laborers. So that's all I ever knew. I went to a school where I had no black teacher role models coming up. Matter of fact, I didn't see my first black teacher until I was in the 8th grade in junior high school. So I didn't have a educated role model to look at, or to want to be, or to emulate. I remember when I was in about the 2nd grade and we were playing at recess, and the ball went over by 2 teachers, and I heard these 2 teachers talking as I went to retrieve the ball. And I heard one teacher tell the other teacher, he said, them little colored kids, they ain't gonna amount to anything, see. But now we were called colored. You see, we had went from Negro to colored. So I heard her say, they ain't gonna amount to anything. I really didn't know how to tackle that, only because it was never explained to me growing up the difference in us. I just knew their color, skin was different than mine. I didn't know anything about racism. That was never brought up. It was just wasn't there because the neighborhood was both black and white and everybody got along great. Now I thought everything was hunky-dory, as they used to say. That was one of their favorite words, hunky-dory. But we stayed there and we moved when I was about 8 years old. But prior to me moving, I had a very trying experience in my life. One of my best friends, father touched me inappropriately when I was about 7 years old. Now I didn't know anything about those situations. It wasn't widely talked about. It wasn't in the newspaper. There was no social media to bring it up. So I didn't know what to do. So I was very fearful of this man. And I didn't tell my mother because I didn't know what to tell her. That this man touched my private parts. It scared me and I ran out. I never went back to their house again. His house was the house we all played at as children. So I had to pass his house to do everything that we did because the street that we lived on, they lived towards the bottom of the hill. We lived towards the top of the street. But the main street was towards the bottom of the hill. The school was on the other side of that main street. The stores were there, everything was there. So for a year, I used to walk around the block to get to the end of the corner again, just so I wouldn't have to go past that man. Now with my family, I wasn't, there was no problem because I was protected by my family. But by myself, I never did that again. Never did that again. So it scared me something fierce. But that was then, this is now. Now we talk about those things. So as I grew up and we moved from Corona, Queens, we moved to the Bronx. And we moved on Boston and Prospect Road. We lived on Prospect Avenue, but it was at the intersection of Boston Road, 2 streets that are just well known in the Bronx. And then we moved into a private dwelling. We had our own little house. It was attached, like all the houses were, but it was our house. In Corona, Queens, we lived in a duplex, which was attached to 2 families living in the same entranceway, going into the same entranceway. That was a very good experience to me because now I'm in a different type of neighborhood. Now I'm in a neighborhood that's both black and now Hispanics, Puerto Rican. In those days, New York, the Hispanics that lived in New York in those days were mainly Puerto Ricans because Puerto Rico was a part of the United States. And this way, that's what I knew. That's when I heard Spanish-speaking languages, Spanish music, and oh, they were very festive all the time, and all night long and all day long, you hear the music, the Spanish music, because they played it loud, and they played it all the time. And then there were Spanish restaurants in there around our neighborhood where you could get cuchifritos, arroz con pollo, you know, foods that they ate. And I started now eating Spanish food. But I'm still young, so I'm still learning a lot. Now, when I went to school, I went to PS 54 in the Bronx. That school, I was a stranger because most of the people that grew up in New York, and even to this day, when you get into a neighborhood, you kind of stay. You don't move around. We moved. This was my second move in life. So you kind of stay in that neighborhood. Generations of families grow up in neighborhoods in New York. They have been then. It's changed now. But back then, your whole family lived in the neighborhood really all their lives and all your life too, until maybe you moved out. But the family wasn't moving. So now I'm into an area where it's both Puerto Rican and black. And I go to school. I'd never been in a fight in my life until I went to school in the Bronx. And because I was a stranger to the neighborhood, I was bullied for the first week. Then all of a sudden, after about a week of getting bullied and pushed around by the guys, I said, I'm not going to take this anymore. So I fought back. And that's when I learned how to fight. Because had I not, they would continue to bully me. See, bullying didn't just start. It's been around for a long time. And I was bullied. And I was a small frame person, but I wasn't about to keep being bullied. So I fought back. Once I fought back, I gained the respect of these guys. Now, in the Bronx, at that particular time, there was an organization for young boys, mainly young African Americans, colored, whatever we wanted to call ourselves, then boys, similar to the Boy Scouts, to the Cub Scouts, but we were military dressed and we stood proud. That's where I learned discipline. That's where I learned how to be a young man. That was my training ground because it was ran by two ex-military men, Major Clark and Colonel Burgee, and Colonel Burgee and Major Clark. That's right. But at any rate, and we had uniforms on like soldiers, khaki uniform, we had spats, we had our little military cap on, and we learned how to march. Boy, did we learn how to march. We used to walk down the street marching in step, or we'd be in step. And that's how it went. And we stayed there for almost 2 years. But in the Minister Cadet Corps, we had competitions against a group just like us that was in Harlem. That's the first time I heard of Harlem. Didn't know we would eventually move there. But you've never seen anything in your life until you've seen 400 or 500 little brothers in each little company, because we had companies like the military, Company A, Company B, Company C, headquarters. So your Company A would march against their Company A, and so on and so on. And then the winner would be crowned champion of your group. And at that particular time, that was a very, very rewarding experience for me. You know, like I said, it taught me discipline, taught me how to be a young man. We learned things that Boy Scouts learned, how to make knots and survival and first aid and all of that. But what that did was, that taught me how to become a man. It also taught me, like I say, how to fight. So now we're living there. I think everything is fine. I figure, well, we're living here. This is where I'm going to be. Then all of a sudden, we move again. Now we move to Harlem. I'm going to tell you about that experience in Harlem at the next session. Only because I want you guys to kind of see how my life was formulated until we got to Harlem. So I'll see you guys again And I'll tell you, because this now is the beginning of the brother from Harlem, and how I got a high school education, and how that high school education formed my life, how the Minister Cadet Corps got me on the right path to becoming a gentleman and a young man. I thank you once again, guys, for tuning in. Remember, like I said, a couple of reference books, Harlem on My Mind, and Black New Yorker. So I'll be checking in with you guys again. I want to make this series that I'm about to bring you about growing up in New York, I want to make it very rewarding to you. This is the way it was because I lived it. I didn't just hear it. So thank you once again. James Lee McFarland, Gentleman Jim, the brother from Harlem with the high school education. See you again.